For centuries, the Amazon was thought to be an untouched wilderness, its vastness hiding only wildlife and rivers. Yet recent discoveries have uncovered structures that suggest entire civilizations once thrived here. Hidden roads, massive plazas, and fortified settlements lie buried beneath the forest floor, invisible until modern technology revealed their outlines. Each finds challenges to long-held ideas about the jungle and the people who shaped it. This video takes you through these ancient sites, showing how the Amazon emerges not just as a natural wonder, but as a landscape carefully crafted by human hands, hinting at secrets that have remained silent for generations. The geoglyphs of Acre. When the dense forests of western Brazil were cut back for cattle pastures, strange outlines began to emerge from the earth. Circles, squares, and elaborate geometric figures took shape beneath the cleared soil, too precise to be natural and too large to be fully grasped from the ground. These silent forms, hidden for centuries under the canopy of the Amazon, offered the first glimpse of a forgotten story written directly into the landscape. Researchers soon realized the scale of what they were seeing. The state of Acre, bordering Peru and Bolivia, revealed more than 450 of these earthworks, each one measuring hundreds of meters across. The sheer size suggested a society capable of organizing labor on a grand scale, yet no written records survived to tell who they were or why they carved these shapes into the land. The discovery challenged the long-standing belief that the Amazon was an untouched wilderness. The geoglyphs were made by cutting deep ditches into the soil, with banks that once stood several meters high. Some designs were simple circles or rectangles, while others combined multiple shapes into intricate patterns. Archaeologists found that many of these structures aligned with natural features like river terraces, hinting at an understanding of the landscape that went beyond basic survival. Dating methods placed the geoglyphs between 2,000 and 650 years ago, long before Europeans set foot in South America. Charcoal remains suggested that controlled burning had cleared the land, leaving open spaces where these forms could be constructed. This finding overturned earlier assumptions that the rainforest had always been an impenetrable jungle, instead showing that parts of it were carefully managed and transformed. For decades, the prevailing view of the Amazon was shaped by the idea that poor soils and dense forests could not support large populations. The Acre geoglyphs revealed the opposite, evidence of communities that were not only surviving, but shaping the land in deliberate, enduring ways. The scale implied coordinated societies with leadership, planning, and a cultural vision that left marks visible even today. Excavations around some of the sites uncovered pottery shards and traces of food remains. These artifacts suggested that the earthworks were not settlements in themselves, but ceremonial or gathering places. Their open centers may have hosted rituals, trade, or social events that drew people from across the region. If true, the geoglyphs were not just marks on the land, but symbols of identity and community. Satellite imagery and LiDAR surveys deepened the mystery by revealing even more shapes still hidden under forest cover. Some geoglyphs formed chains stretching for kilometers, connected by faint traces of ancient roads. Others were isolated, standing alone in areas that would have once been clear fields. Each discovery added to the sense that the ancient Amazon was a network of managed landscapes, rather than a wilderness without human design. Local knowledge also played a role in bringing these structures to light. Farmers who first saw the shapes emerging from their fields reported them to archaeologists, ensuring that the sites were recorded before modern agriculture erased them completely. Their accounts reminded researchers how easily history can vanish if the forest floor is not carefully studied before being altered. The scale of the geoglyphs invited comparisons to other ancient wonders. While not carved into stone like the pyramids of Egypt or the temples of Mesoamerica, they carried the same sense of deliberate permanence. Creating earthworks of this size required thousands of hours of labor, with communities committing themselves to projects that would last long beyond their own lifetimes. What makes the Acre geoglyphs even more puzzling is the absence of direct descendants claiming them as heritage. Unlike other cultures with oral traditions that preserve memory, the people who built these vast shapes left no stories behind. Their designs lie mute in the soil, refusing to reveal whether they marked sacred ground, calendars, or pathways into other realms of meaning. As more sites continue to be uncovered, archaeologists face the challenge of protecting them, while the forest around them changes rapidly. Logging, farming, and urban growth threaten to erase what little remains visible. Each geoglyph is a fragile clue, vulnerable to being destroyed before its secrets are fully understood. Standing at the edge of one of these earthworks today, it's hard not to wonder why ancient hands dug so deep and wide, leaving patterns visible only from above, as if meant for an unseen audience. The circular settlements of the Upper Xingu. A flight over the forest canopy in central Brazil reveals nothing but endless green, stretching unbroken to every horizon. Hidden beneath this dense expanse lies a different view altogether, one that only laser scanning technology has brought to light. Faint rings pressed into the ground, forming vast circles of human design that have been invisible for centuries. The Upper Xingu region of Mato Grosso was long believed to be home only to scattered groups, yet evidence uncovered in recent decades tells a more surprising story. Archaeologists working with LiDAR discovered hundreds of circular structures arranged in complex patterns, their outlines preserved beneath thick vegetation. These were not small camps, but carefully planned communities, each one connected to others through straight paths cut through the forest. Each settlement was built in a ring, with houses facing inward toward a central plaza. The scale of these villages varied, but some had diameters reaching several hundred meters. The roads radiated outward like spokes on a wheel, linking neighboring circles into a larger network. This layout suggested deliberate planning and social organization, qualities often denied to pre-Columbian peoples of the Amazon. Excavations provided further detail about daily life inside these rings. Pottery fragments, traces of hearths, and refuse deposits showed that families lived in communal clusters, sharing the central plaza for ceremonies, markets, and gatherings. The consistent design across many sites implied shared cultural traditions spanning the Upper Xingu Basin, where groups worked together to shape their environment. Dating of the settlements placed their occupation between 1250 and 1600, centuries before European contact devastated the region through disease and upheaval. At their height, the ringed villages may have supported tens of thousands of people, forming one of the most complex societies in the Amazon. Their disappearance was not due to collapse alone, but to the forest reclaiming its ground, erasing the visible traces of human presence. The precision of the road system impressed researchers. Some roads were as wide as 10 meters, extending in straight lines for kilometers at a time. They connected one circular village to another, weaving a web of movement and communication across the forest. The idea of isolated tribes vanished in the face of this evidence, replaced by an image of a region bound together through infrastructure and cooperation. These discoveries forced scholars to rethink long-held views of Amazonian history. The assumption that the rainforest could not sustain large populations proved false when confronted with entire landscapes of engineered settlement. Instead of fragile communities surviving at the margins, the people of the Upper Xingu had shaped their environment into a cultural landscape, balancing agriculture, fishing, and forest management. Local oral traditions also offered subtle echoes of this forgotten past. Contemporary Xingu peoples still build villages in circular patterns, with plazas at the center and houses facing inward. This continuity suggests that the ancient settlements revealed by LiDAR were not isolated experiments, but the ancestors of living communities. The ground beneath the forest tells one story, and the customs of today carry it forward. One striking aspect of the ringed villages is the lack of defensive walls or moats. The circular design seems to emphasize unity and shared space rather than separation. Researchers suggest that conflict was rare in this region and that the settlements functioned as centers of cooperation rather than fortresses. The roads reinforced this openness, encouraging travel and exchange between communities. Even with these insights, the purpose of certain features remains uncertain. Some circular sites were larger and more elaborate than others, hinting at political or ceremonial roles. The symmetry of the designs raises the possibility of symbolic meaning tied to cosmology, with circles representing order, balance, or connection between people and the natural world. Yet no definitive explanation has been found. The fragility of these sites adds to their mystery. Centuries of forest regrowth, soil movement, and modern agriculture threaten what remains beneath the trees. Archaeologists race against time to document and protect the settlements before they are permanently lost. Every ring traced by LiDAR is a clue, but also a reminder of how much has already disappeared. Beneath the dense canopy, the buried rings endure, their precise shapes hinting at a vision of life and order that the jungle has concealed but not yet erased. The raised fields of Llanos de Mojo's. Each year, the floodwaters of the Bolivian Amazon spread across the plains of Beni, turning the land into a vast inland sea. For months, the savanna disappears under brown currents, and when the water finally retreats, it leaves behind marshes and shallow pools that stretch as far as the eye can see. In this shifting world of water and mud, ancient hands carved out a system of survival that remains etched into the land even today. When Spanish missionaries entered the region in the 17th century, they were astonished to find networks of earthworks stretching across the horizon. Jesuit records described strange raised platforms that seemed to rise above the floods like islands. At the time, they assumed these were natural features or the remnants of lost cities, but their origins would not be fully recognized until centuries later. Modern surveys using satellite imagery and aerial photography revealed the full scale of these constructions. Tens of thousands of raised fields, canals, and causeways crisscross the savanna of the Llanos de Mojos, forming patterns too deliberate to be accidental. From above, the earthworks look like an endless mosaic, each rectangular mound aligned with others to create a patchwork of ancient engineering. The raised fields themselves were built by piling soil into elevated platforms several meters high. These platforms lifted crops above the floodwaters, ensuring that plants could grow even during the wettest months. Between the fields, canals drained excess water and may have been stocked with fish, providing an additional source of food. The ingenuity of this system turned a flooded plain into a landscape of abundance. Archaeologists studying the fields have found evidence of continuous use over many centuries. Radiocarbon dating places their construction as early as 500 BCE, with widespread expansion occurring around 1000 CE. The scale of the earthworks suggested that tens of thousands of people once lived in the region, supported by a carefully managed agricultural base. The fields were not scattered randomly, but organized into clusters that stretched for kilometers. Some were arranged around large settlement mounds, where people built homes and ceremonial centers above the floodplain. These settlements often included causeways linking them to neighboring communities, creating a web of movement across land that would otherwise have been impassable during the rains. Excavations of the mounds revealed pottery decorated with intricate designs, as well as tools fashioned for farming and fishing. These artifacts suggested a society deeply tied to both land and water, adapting its way of life to the rhythm of seasonal floods. The raised fields were not simply a clever trick of farming, but the foundation of an entire culture built on cooperation and foresight. The resilience of the system stood out to researchers. In a modern world where flooding often brings devastation, the people of Llanos de Mojos had mastered a way to turn floods into a resource. By capturing nutrients carried by the rivers and depositing them on the fields, they created soils rich enough to support large harvests. Their methods were sustainable and endured for centuries without exhausting the land. Yet the mystery remains as to how such a large population eventually vanished. When Europeans arrived, much of the system had already been abandoned. Epidemics brought by outsiders devastated local communities, but even before contact, many of the raised fields had fallen silent. Some scholars suggest climate shifts disrupted the delicate balance of water and soil. Others believe social upheaval or conflict played a role. The true cause is still uncertain. What is clear is that the forest and savanna have reclaimed much of what was built. From the ground, the raised fields are often hidden under grass and scrub, their outlines visible only from the air. Cattle now graze where maize and manioc once grew, and the canals that once held fish are filled with reeds. Still, the earthworks remain, silent reminders of the people who turned flood into farmland. The rediscovery of these raised fields has transformed how historians view the Amazon basin. Instead of a wilderness sparsely populated by small groups, it was home to societies capable of reshaping entire landscapes. The Llanos de Mojos stands as proof that the rainforest and its savanna edges once held complex civilizations whose ingenuity rivaled that of any ancient world. From the air, the shapes of the fields still emerge through the grasslands, hinting at a vanished order that refuses to be forgotten. The defensive earthworks of Acre. The forest of Acre is dense and restless, its canopy so thick that sunlight struggles to reach the ground. Beneath this living ceiling, the soil holds faint ridges and trenches that seem out of place among the roots. At first glance, they resemble natural rises in the land, but when traced from above, their lines sharpen into deliberate forms, stretching in curves and angles that no accident of nature could create. In the late 20th century, when deforestation cleared wide swaths of jungle for pasture, these patterns became visible from the air. Pilots flying over Acre in Brazil's western Amazon noticed networks of ditches and embankments spread across the cleared ground. Their sheer scale suggested something larger than isolated settlements. These were not small garden plots or temporary camps. They were vast, coordinated defences, hinting at organised societies once capable of reshaping the earth. The earthworks often consist of long ditches running in parallel, sometimes reinforced by raised berms. Many are several metres wide and cut deep into the ground, forming barriers that could slow or channel movement. From above, some appear as enclosed circles or squares, while others snake across the land in irregular lines. Archaeologists studying them have compared their design to fortifications, systems intended to protect people and resources from attack. Radiocarbon dating of soils and charcoal found within the trenches suggests that many of these structures were built between 10 and 20 years ago. This places them within a period when numerous cultures thrived across the Amazon basin, long before European contact. The defensive appearance of the Acre earthworks suggests conflict, or at least the threat of it, shaped the lives of their builders. Some sites show evidence of overlapping construction, where older trenches were cut through by newer ones. This layering hints at long-term occupation, with generations returning to reinforce or expand the defences. Each alteration may have marked new struggles, shifting borders, or the rise of rival groups nearby. The ground itself became a canvas of survival, recorded in trenches rather than writing. Excavations have revealed postholes along the inner edges of some earthworks, signs that palisades or wooden walls once stood above the ditches. When combined with sharpened stakes and watchtowers, these would have created formidable barriers. Even today, imagining such walls stretching across the clearings conjures an image of tense vigilance, where entire communities lived under the constant shadow of threat. Archaeologists note that not all earthworks were purely defensive. Some enclosures include causeways and carefully planned entrances, suggesting ritual or ceremonial use alongside protection. This dual purpose complicates interpretation. Were these societies fortifying themselves against enemies, or marking sacred spaces with earth that doubled as a barrier? The ambiguity deepens the mystery, leaving the trenches as silent witnesses to purposes we can only partially guess. Satellite imagery has become a powerful tool in expanding knowledge of the Acre earthworks. Where dense forest still covers the region, patterns can sometimes be detected in the soil beneath the canopy. LIDAR, a technology that strips away vegetation in digital scans, has revealed faint outlines of additional ditches waiting to be studied. These discoveries suggest that the known sites are only a fraction of what once covered the landscape. Local oral histories rarely mention the earthworks, as many cultures in the region were displaced or decimated after European arrival. The absence of stories adds to the enigma, forcing researchers to rely solely on soil, pollen, and carbon traces. Every trench uncovered points to a society strong enough to engineer massive projects, yet fragile enough to vanish without leaving written accounts. The spread of agriculture and cattle ranching continues to expose more of these ancient defences, even as it threatens their preservation. Bulldozers cut through berms, and erosion wears away the edges of ditches. Archaeologists rush to document sites before they are lost, balancing urgency with the patience needed for careful excavation. Each destroyed section erases a piece of a story that may never be told in full. Standing within one of these trenches today, the walls rising on either side, it is possible to imagine the sounds of the past, the clatter of tools shaping earth, the calls of watchmen, the murmur of families sheltered behind the barriers. Yet the jungle has reclaimed the silence, and only the earth remembers the battles that may once have raged here. The defensive earthworks of Acre remain carved into the ground, their vast lines visible from above, yet unreadable in meaning, holding secrets of a world where survival was written in soil and guarded by walls of earth. The sunken roadways of the Xingu Basin. Traveling across the Xingu Basin in northern Brazil, one might not expect to find long, straight depressions cutting through the forest. At ground level, they appear as shallow corridors, often hidden beneath tangled vines and scattered leaves. Yet from above, they reveal themselves as an extensive system of sunken pathways, stretching for kilometers in carefully aligned directions. Their precision hints at planning and purpose, far beyond casual foot trails. The first major recognition of these roadways came when deforestation in the late 20th century cleared vast tracts of the Amazon. Aerial surveys revealed the presence of straight lines etched into the land, connecting ancient settlement sites across the basin. These discoveries challenged the long-held view of the Amazon as a wilderness untouched by complex societies, instead pointing to networks that once supported organized population. Archaeologists found that many of the depressions run up to 40 meters wide, with edges sometimes reinforced by low embankments. Their depth varies, but most are cut several feet into the ground, creating corridors that remain visible even after centuries of erosion. Unlike natural gullies, their lines are too straight and purposeful to be accidental. Their construction required coordinated labor, suggesting communities that work together on a scale rarely associated with pre-Columbian Amazonia. Some of the corridors cut across rivers and streams, where archaeologists have found evidence of causeways and simple bridges that would have kept the routes passable during seasonal floods. The roadways often link geoglyphs and settlement mounds scattered throughout the region. In some areas, they radiate outward from central sites like spokes of a wheel, connecting communities over long distances. The scale of connectivity implied by these routes suggests trade, communication, and possibly religious or political unity. These were not isolated groups, they were people tied together by pathways carved into the earth itself. Dating the roadways has relied on soil analysis and artifacts found near their intersections. Many appear to have been built between 500 and 1500 CE, overlapping with the period when large settlements flourished in the Xingu. The timing suggests that the roads were integral to the rise and organization of these societies, providing both practical movement and symbolic links between communities. Alongside certain roadways, clusters of pottery fragments and fire-blackened soil suggest rest points or gathering areas where travelers may have paused during long journeys. Unlike paved or stone-lined roads seen in other ancient civilizations, the Xingu routes were carved directly into the earth. This method left them vulnerable to erosion, yet their sheer size ensured survival over centuries. In some places, vegetation has grown thick within the depressions, creating natural corridors for animals and maintaining the memory of roads long abandoned by people. Researchers have debated whether the roadways had strictly utilitarian purposes, While their straightness suggests travel efficiency, their orientation often aligns with settlement layouts or ceremonial centers, hinting at a deeper role. Some archaeologists propose that processions or rituals may have taken place along these sunken paths, giving them social and spiritual weight beyond transport. LiDAR technology has transformed the study of these features. By digitally stripping away vegetation, researchers have mapped hundreds of kilometers of hidden corridors across the Xingu Basin. Each new survey reveals additional connections, suggesting that the known road system is only a fraction of its original extent. The more revealed, the clearer it becomes that these were the arteries of a vast, organized landscape. Satellite images have revealed patterns where multiple roads converge, creating junctions that resemble the layout of early towns, hinting that these intersections may have served as hubs of commerce or ceremony. The disappearance of the societies that built the roads remains a matter of debate. Epidemics, introduced after European contact, likely played a devastating role, erasing communities and traditions that once maintained these paths. Without the builders to keep them clear, the forest advanced, covering intersections and crossings until they became faint scars, visible only from above. The survival of these depressions under the weight of centuries speaks to the intensity of the effort that shaped them. To cut miles of straight, deep corridors through dense forest would have required tools, manpower, and a vision of order that pushed against the chaos of the natural world. Each roadway represents not only movement, but also the will to impose structure upon a vast environment. Today, the sunken roadways of the Xingu Basin remain both a puzzle and a revelation. They prove that the forest once held societies capable of reshaping it in ways few had imagined. Yet they also raise questions about the scale of those societies and the knowledge they carried. What lies beyond the mapped corridors may reveal a network larger than anything yet uncovered. The ground of the Xingu still holds the traces of these buried highways, waiting for the forest to give up more of its secrets. The ceremonial plazas of Tapajos. The Tapajos River meets the Amazon in western Para, where the waters mix in shifting bands of blue and brown. Along these banks, archaeologists have uncovered traces of plazas so vast and carefully arranged that they stand apart from ordinary settlement spaces. They appear not as casual clearings, but as deliberate constructions, shaped into circles, rectangles, and squares that once framed the lives of thousands of people. Attention first turned to these features when large tracts of forest were cleared for modern development, revealing strange geometric openings in the landscape. Researchers who surveyed the exposed ground noticed their size, with some plazas stretching hundreds of meters across. Unlike farm fields or natural clearings, their edges were sharply defined, hinting at careful planning and cultural significance. Investigations in the late 20th century linked the plazas to the Tapaho people, whose presence dominated the region when Europeans first arrived in the 17th century. Historical accounts describe dense populations living in complex towns near Santarém, where plazas lay at the heart of their communities. Archaeology has since confirmed that these spaces were central, often surrounded by large earthen mounds and residential areas. Excavations around these plazas have uncovered fragments of decorated ceramics, including elaborate urns and ritual vessels. Many display intricate designs of human and animal figures, suggesting symbolic or religious use. The presence of such artifacts indicates that the plazas were not simple gathering grounds, but stages for rituals that tied the community together. Post holes discovered around some plaza edges suggest that wooden structures, possibly ceremonial houses or stages, once framed these open spaces. Some of the plazas connect to straight causeways that stretch out into the surrounding forest, creating ordered pathways linking settlements. This integration of plazas with broader networks shows a high degree of organization, suggesting that the Tapajo were not isolated groups, but part of a system of towns bound by ceremonial and social ties. These connections gave the plazas importance beyond their immediate locations. Soil studies have revealed that many of the plazas were lined with dark, fertile earth, known as terra preta. This engineered soil, rich in charcoal and nutrients, points to long-term human activity and an effort to maintain the spaces as living, usable ground. The enhancement of soil in ceremonial spaces underscores the deliberate care taken to preserve their role within the community. Chemical testing of soils has revealed traces of ancient fires, pointing to large communal burnings that may have marked seasonal or ritual events. Early European travelers recorded their impressions of Tapajós gatherings. Some noted crowds filling the plazas during feasts and rituals, with music, dance, and trade all woven into the events. Though filtered through outside eyes, these accounts align with the archaeological evidence that the plazas were designed to accommodate large numbers of people. The spaces functioned as the physical and symbolic centers of Tapajós life. Modern research using LiDAR has revealed even more plazas hidden beneath forest cover, many arranged in repeating patterns across the landscape. Their sheer number suggests that the Tapajós were part of a broader cultural tradition in the Amazon, where plazas served as anchors for settlement and ceremony. The consistency of design hints at shared values that extended beyond a single community. Some LiDAR surveys show plazas aligned in ways that may reflect solar or celestial patterns, raising the possibility that gatherings here were tied to astronomical observations. Despite their importance, the exact functions of the plazas remain uncertain. Some scholars believe they hosted rituals of fertility and renewal, while others suggest they marked political power and authority. The artifacts and alignments provide clues but no single answer, leaving room for interpretations that weave together spiritual, social, and political life. The decline of the Tapajós people after European contact left these plazas silent. Disease and colonization disrupted the social fabric that once gave them meaning. Without constant maintenance, the forest slowly returned, covering edges with roots and vines. What remains today are outlines etched into the soil, reminders of the gatherings that once filled them with sound and color. For archaeologists, the plazas represent not only the history of one people, but also evidence of a broader Amazonian tradition of monument building. They challenge older views that dismissed the rainforest as unsuitable for complex societies, revealing instead a landscape shaped by vision and effort. The plazas show that the Amazon once supported an urban life that was both sophisticated and deeply rooted in place. As research continues, new plazas come to light, each adding another piece to the puzzle of how the Tapajós built their world. The Monte Alegre rock complex, high above the Amazon River in Pará, cliffs rise where the rainforest thins and the ground opens to rock faces stained by time. On these walls, painted figures still linger, their red outlines vivid against pale stone. They show animals, humans, and abstract shapes in clusters that stretch across the rock, forming one of the most remarkable archaeological records in the region. The Monte Alegre rock art first drew academic attention in the 19th century, when travelers reported unusual paintings on the cliffs. Later, investigations confirmed their antiquity, with radiocarbon dating of nearby materials, suggesting some images may be over 11,000 years old. If correct, they are among the earliest known human expressions in South America, challenging assumptions about the timeline of cultural development in the Amazon. Researchers studying the paintings have noted the variety of subjects. Some depict fish, birds, and deer-like animals, offering glimpses into the fauna that sustained early inhabitants. Others show human figures in dynamic poses, sometimes in groups that may represent rituals or dances. The mix of natural and abstract imagery suggests that the walls were more than decoration. They were a canvas for ideas about life, community, and the unseen world. The pigments used were made primarily from red ochre, a mineral that binds strongly to stone. This choice helped preserve the art across millennia, despite heavy rains and the encroaching forest. In some places, layers of paint overlap, hinting that generations return to the same walls, adding new symbols while respecting the older ones beneath. Such continuity points to traditions deeply rooted in place. Nearby caves and shelters provide evidence that people lived close to these painted cliffs. Excavations have uncovered stone tools, pottery fragments, and remains of hearths. The connection between daily life and the art suggests that the rock complex was not isolated or occasional, but integrated into the rhythms of habitation. Living in the shadow of these painted walls may have given ordinary routines a constant reminder of shared beliefs. Scholars have debated the meanings of the images, with some interpreting them as records of hunting, others as spiritual visions. The repetitive presence of certain animals has led to speculation that they were tied to myths or totemic traditions. Abstract patterns, including circles and lines, raise the possibility of symbolic maps or representations of natural cycles. Without written records, the true intent remains elusive, leaving room for multiple layers of interpretation. The setting of the Monte Alegre cliffs adds to their significance. Positioned on high ground overlooking the river, the rock faces command sweeping views of the surrounding landscape. From these vantage points, early communities could have tracked seasonal floods, animal migrations, and celestial events. Some researchers propose that the placement of paintings was intentional, tying ritual expression to natural observation. Archaeological digs in the Caverna de Pedra Pintada, part of the Monte Alegre complex, have revealed human presence stretching back more than 11,000 years. Charcoal, bones, and tools found in the cave provide hard evidence of long-term occupation. The art on the nearby walls may therefore reflect one of the earliest settled traditions in the Amazon, connecting symbolic expression to survival strategies. Comparisons with other South American rock art sites reveal both similarities and striking differences. While some motifs echo styles found in the Andes or coastal regions, many are unique to Monte Alegre. This blend of shared and local traits hints at cultural exchanges that reach deep into the forest, alongside creative developments born within the community itself. The survival of the rock paintings into the present is precarious. Exposure to weather, plant growth, and human interference threatens their preservation. Conservation efforts have begun, but the challenges are immense, as protecting ancient art within a living forest requires balancing heritage with environmental change. Each fading figure is a reminder of the fragile connection between past and present. Modern technology has allowed researchers to document the art in greater detail. Digital imaging and 3D scans capture faint lines invisible to the naked eye, revealing hidden figures and layers. These tools provide a clearer picture of the artist's methods and choices, while also preserving a record in case the originals are lost. The technology brings to light what human eyes alone might miss. The Monte Alegre rock complex remains one of the oldest mysteries of the Amazon, its walls bearing witness to a world that has long vanished, yet still speaks in lines of red and shadow. The ancient canals of Aker. In the shadows of Brazil's dense forests, shapes cut into the soil form designs unseen from the ground. From above, they resemble long corridors stretching across the land, with sharp angles and connections that form networks of water channels. These are the ancient canals of Aker, an intricate system that hints at engineering far older than once believed possible in the Amazon. The discovery of these canals gained attention through aerial surveys in the late 20th century. As the forest canopy was cleared for pastures, the ground beneath showed remarkable shapes, trenches, ditches, and straight cuts that extended for kilometers. Unlike random erosion, these features followed deliberate designs, often linking streams or guiding water through controlled paths. Their presence challenged long-held assumptions that the Amazon lacked advanced pre-Columbian infrastructure. Archaeologists working in Aker have mapped hundreds of these features, with some ditches measuring more than 10 meters wide and several meters deep. Many run parallel for long distances, while others intersect at precise right angles. The layout suggests careful planning, as if the builders understood both the flow of water and the shape of the terrain. The sheer scale of the work points to communities large enough to organize collective labor over extended periods. Dating methods have placed the construction of some canals at more than 1,000 years ago. Soil analysis shows layers of sediment that indicate long use, with evidence that the channels were periodically cleaned or expanded. Their endurance across centuries suggests that the builders intended them to last, and that their importance to daily survival was significant. Maintaining such networks would have required shared responsibility and continuity of knowledge. In some places, the soil layers also contain microscopic charcoal, suggesting controlled burning nearby, which may have been part of a broader system of land management tied to the canals. The purpose of the Acre canals remains a subject of debate. Some researchers believe they were designed for drainage, keeping settlements dry in flood-prone zones. Others suggest they were used to irrigate crops, channeling water during dry spells to sustain agriculture. A further theory proposes that they served as fish traps, guiding aquatic life into confined areas for easier capture. Each possibility points to an intimate understanding of the environment and its cycles. The landscape surrounding the canals strengthens these ideas. Many are located near geoglyphs, large earthworks shaped into circles, squares, and other forms visible from above. This proximity raises questions about whether the canals were part of a larger system that combined practical water management with ceremonial or social functions. The integration of geometric earthworks with functional channels hints at a worldview where survival and ritual were deeply connected. Fieldwork in Acre has also uncovered remnants of habitation sites near the canals. Fragments of pottery, charred seeds, and stone tools show that people lived and worked in close connection with the waterways. Some pottery bears designs that may reflect cultural identity, suggesting that the communities were not small, isolated groups, but part of a broader tradition that valued both artistry and engineering. Charred plant remains from hearths show the presence of cultivated crops such as maize and manioc, linking the canal system directly to farming practices. The complexity of these earthworks adds weight to the growing recognition that the Amazon was not a pristine wilderness untouched by humans, but a landscape shaped by generations. The Acre canals stand as material evidence that societies here manipulated their environment in sustainable ways, balancing natural forces with human needs. Their achievement undermines older narratives that portrayed the region's early inhabitants as simple foragers. Modern technology has helped bring these hidden structures into focus. LiDAR scanning, which penetrates dense vegetation, has revealed additional canals still buried under forest cover. These findings suggest that what is visible today may represent only a fraction of the original system. The more researchers uncover, the more it becomes clear that Acre's ancient inhabitants engineered their surroundings with a scale and vision that was both practical and symbolic. The scans also revealed subtly raised fields adjacent to the canals, which may have worked together to regulate moisture and expand arable land. Preservation of these features is an ongoing concern. Agricultural expansion continues to expose new sites, but also risks destroying them before they can be studied. Once leveled, the shallow traces vanish, erasing records that survived for centuries. Protecting these canals means balancing local needs with the recognition that the ground itself holds a record of innovation still not fully understood. The ancient canals of Acre remain silent under the weight of soil and vegetation, their patterns suggesting forgotten strategies and lost knowledge that may yet change how the history of the Amazon is told. The fortress mounds of Marajo Island. Marajo Island, when viewed from the sky, reveals a landscape of winding waterways, broad plains, and designs hidden in the soil. Rising from the flat wetlands are mounds of soil that stand in striking contrast to the landscape around them, their shapes deliberate and imposing. Some of these elevated platforms stretch for hundreds of meters, arranged in patterns that suggest more than simple habitation. They are often called fortress mounds, though their original purpose has remained a puzzle. Early explorers who traveled through the lower Amazon in the 19th century described these mounds with astonishment, noting their scale and unusual placement. Some stood near rivers, while others were built on higher ground, offering wide views of the surrounding plains. Unlike natural rises, their sides showed signs of careful construction, with packed layers of earth suggesting intentional design. Their distribution hinted at both defense and ceremony, though little was known at the time about the societies that created them. Archaeological studies in the 20th century revealed that Marajo was home to a complex culture long before Europeans arrived. The Marajara culture flourished between 400 and 1400 CE, leaving behind elaborate ceramics decorated with geometric designs and stylized figures. Many of these artifacts were uncovered near or atop the large mounds, linking the raised earthworks with organized communities that thrived on the island. The ceramics suggested not just survival, but an aesthetic and spiritual world deeply tied to the land. Researchers observed that the largest mounds were not isolated. They often formed clusters connected by smaller embankments. This arrangement gave the impression of planned settlements, where elevated platforms could have served as living areas during seasonal floods, while also functioning as gathering spaces. The sheer volume of soil moved to create these features pointed to coordinated labor, likely requiring hundreds of workers over many years. Such effort indicates a society with leadership, shared purpose, and advanced knowledge of engineering. The possibility that some mounds served defensive roles comes from their layout and height. Positioned on elevated points, they would have allowed inhabitants to watch for approaching groups and protect resources stored within the settlement. Defensive ditches have been identified around certain mounds, further supporting the idea that these were not only practical against flooding, but also strategic in times of conflict. Their role as fortifications remains debated, but the evidence suggests defense was at least one part of their design. Excavations have uncovered traces of dwellings atop several mounds, showing that families lived directly on the raised ground. Hearths, food, remains, and fragments of pottery reveal daily life carried out in these elevated villages. Some of the larger mounds also contain burials, with carefully arranged skeletons and funerary offerings. These discoveries link the structures not only to protection and settlement, but also to ritual practices, making them central to both survival and belief. The artistry of Marajoara ceramics gives further clues to the meaning of the mounds. Many vessels depict animals such as turtles, birds, and snakes, creatures tied to water and fertility. The connection between the designs and the watery environment of Marajo suggests the people saw their landscape as alive with spiritual forces. Building massive earthworks may have been as much about shaping a sacred space as it was about defense or habitation. The mounds themselves could have embodied a worldview where humans actively shaped their surroundings in harmony with natural cycles. Modern techniques have deepened the understanding of the scale of these constructions. Remote sensing has revealed additional earthworks hidden beneath forest and savanna cover, showing that the extent of Marajoara engineering was larger than previously thought. These findings suggest that the island may have supported tens of thousands of people in interconnected communities. The complexity rivals other pre-Columbian centers of South America, challenging earlier assumptions that the Amazon was home only to small, scattered groups. Soil analysis has shown that many mounds were built using a special kind of fertile earth known as terra preta. This dark soil, enriched with charcoal, bone, and organic matter, retains nutrients far better than the natural soils of the region. Its presence indicates careful management of resources and long-term planning for agriculture. By using terra preta, the builders ensured that crops could be grown near settlements, sustaining large populations in an environment otherwise difficult for farming. Despite these advances in knowledge, many aspects of the fortress mounds remain uncertain. Scholars continue to debate whether defense, ceremony, or environmental adaptation was the primary reason for their construction. The lack of written records leaves interpretation reliant on fragments of pottery, soil layers, and the silent forms of the mounds themselves. Each excavation brings new data, but also new questions about the daily lives, conflicts, and beliefs of the people who raised them. The fortress mounds linger in the wetlands like silent sentinels, holding secrets that still evade those who try to read their meaning. The ringed villages of the Puras Madeira region. Aerial views of the central Amazon first revealed pale circles imprinted on the land. Through the dense green cover, the forms appeared like scars, their exact symmetry strangely misplaced among the winding rivers and crowded trees. Once researchers set foot on the ground, they realized these circles were not natural formations, but the remains of villages carefully arranged in rings that spoke of a long-lost order in the heart of the jungle. The Purus Madeira interfluvial zone, located in Brazil's southwestern Amazon, became the focus of investigation in the early 2000s when deforestation exposed geometric earthworks. Unlike isolated mounds or canals, these sites showed evidence of entire communities laid out in circles. The layout included central plazas, radiating roads, and outer ditches or embankments. Archaeologists soon recognized that hundreds of such villages once dotted this region, connected by straight avenues stretching for kilometers across the forest. Excavations revealed post holes and soil discoloration that marked the footprints of long-vanished houses. Each ring consisted of dozens of dwellings facing inward toward a plaza, suggesting a strong communal orientation. The size of the settlements varied, but some could have housed several hundred people. Pottery shards, tools, and charred remains of food provided clues to daily life, indicating a culture that thrived on farming, fishing, and hunting in carefully managed landscapes. The precision of these settlements challenged assumptions about pre-Columbian Amazonia. For decades, many believed the rainforest could not support large, sedentary populations. Yet the ringed villages pointed to organized societies capable of planning, coordination, and long-term settlement. Their circular designs were not random, but followed shared patterns, hinting at cultural rules that stretched across the Purus Madeira corridor. Satellite imagery deepened the mystery by revealing how these rings were not isolated. Straight roads linked one village to another, suggesting a network rather than scattered communities. Some avenues aligned with the cardinal directions, while others ran directly toward neighboring sites. This level of connectivity implies cooperation on a regional scale, where settlements functioned as part of a broader system rather than independent enclaves. Archaeological studies also uncovered dark earth soils, known as terra preta, around many of the villages. These fertile patches were created through deliberate enrichment with charcoal, organic waste, and nutrients. The presence of terra preta showed that the inhabitants modified the forest to sustain crops such as maize, manioc, and fruits. Instead of living in untouched wilderness, they engineered the land to support complex communities, leaving behind a legacy of human-shaped ecosystems. Debate continues over the purpose of the circular arrangement. Some scholars suggest the ditches surrounding villages acted as defenses, protecting against rival groups. Others see them as symbolic boundaries, marking sacred space or reinforcing community unity. The uniform orientation of houses toward plazas may have reflected social rules that placed collective life above individual households. Ceremonies, trade, and decisions could all have centered in the open plazas, turning them into stages of social identity. The disappearance of these settlements raises further questions. By the time Europeans entered the Amazon basin in the 16th century, many of these villages were already abandoned. Epidemics, conflict, and colonial disruption may have erased the societies that built them. Today, indigenous groups live throughout the Purus and Madeira regions, yet none claim direct descent from the builders of the earthworks. Their absence creates a silence in the archaeological record, leaving researchers to piece together meaning from soil, pottery, and geometry. The sheer number of sites adds weight to their significance. Surveys have documented hundreds of ringed villages, covering an area larger than many European countries. This density suggests a population far greater than previously imagined, organized into regional networks that could rival early urban systems in other parts of the world. Their construction would have required generations of labor, shared vision, and knowledge passed from one community to another. Unanswered questions remain at the center of the mystery. Why did these societies choose circular layouts instead of other forms? How did they maintain networks across such vast stretches of rainforest? And what rituals or beliefs were tied to the open plazas that stood at the core of each ring? Archaeologists can measure distances and date pottery fragments, but the symbolic meaning of the circles continues to elude modern understanding. Today, many of these sites lie hidden beneath thick vegetation, their ditches softened by centuries of rain and growth. Farmers and loggers sometimes uncover faint traces while clearing land, unaware that the soil beneath their feet once held the shape of an entire community. The forest guards their memory, concealing stories of cooperation, ceremony, and loss beneath its green canopy. In the heart of the Purus Madeira wilderness, the silent circles wait, their buried lines holding secrets that no one has yet fully read. The giant burrows of the Amazon. Deep within the tangled forests of Brazil, enormous tunnels run beneath the ground, their walls worn smooth, as though shaped by massive claws. These are not the narrow burrows of armadillos or anteaters, but sprawling passageways large enough for a person to walk through upright. To those who first stumbled across them, the scale seemed impossible, raising the question of what kind of creature could have carved such vast chambers beneath the earth. Farmers and road crews began noticing the strange hollows when clearing land across the states of Rondônia and Acre. Heavy machinery sometimes broke through the ceilings of hidden galleries, revealing arched corridors stretching several meters in length. Some of the openings were so wide that entire vehicles could fit inside them. Local workers thought they might be old mine shafts or natural caves, but geologists quickly pointed out that the marks on the walls suggested something different. In 2010, Brazilian geologist Amilcar Adami from the Geological Survey of Brazil investigated one of the largest sites near the city of Rondônia. What he found astonished him: tunnels extending nearly 70 feet with branching chambers that twisted underground like the lairs of some lost beast. Scratch marks, deep and parallel, ran along the walls in patterns too deliberate to be natural fractures. These grooves told of repeated movements by powerful claws over countless years. The discovery pointed to creatures that no longer roam the forest. Paleontologists identified the likely makers as giant ground sloths or prehistoric armadillos, members of the megafauna that once lived across South America during the Pleistocene epoch. These animals, far larger than their modern relatives, could have reached sizes comparable to elephants. Fossil evidence shows that such beasts thrived thousands of years ago, only to vanish when climates shifted and human hunting pressures rose. What makes the Amazon burrows so unusual is their sheer number. Researchers have documented hundreds of them, scattered across hillsides, riverbanks, and ridges. Some consist of a single tunnel, while others form complex networks, with entryways that would have served as gateways to underground shelters. Unlike ordinary caves, these structures do not follow the patterns of water erosion. Their placement and the claw-marked walls reveal them as the work of living architects. Inside these chambers, the air feels heavy and damp, and the walls glisten with minerals deposited over centuries. Archaeologists note that sediment layers often fill the lower portions, sealing traces of ancient life within. Bones and plant remains sometimes lie buried in the soil, offering potential clues about the environment in which the burrow builders lived. Each site becomes not only a record of vanished animals, but also a window into the landscapes they once shaped. The possibility that such creatures engineered entire networks beneath the forest floor alters how scientists view the prehistoric Amazon. Rather than being only a canopy-dominated world, it may also have been an underground landscape, riddled with shelters where animals sought refuge from heat or predators. The scale suggests deliberate behavior, not random digging, pointing to survival strategies that we are only beginning to understand. Debate surrounds how many species were involved in the construction. Some tunnels are so wide that only giant sloths like Erymatherium could have carved them, their curved claws etching grooves into rock-hard soil. Others are narrower, more suited to immense armadillos, known as pampathers. Distinguishing which animal made which tunnel remains a challenge, yet the evidence shows that multiple lineages of megafauna likely took part in reshaping the ground. The extinction of these creatures leaves their underground homes without occupants. What remains are hollow monuments of labor, silent reminders of an era when beasts larger than any found in today's forests moved through the Amazon. Unlike stone ruins built by humans, these structures are the legacy of animals, their architecture preserved in the earth, long after their kind disappeared. Modern threats add urgency to their study. Expanding agriculture, mining, and road projects cut through hills where burrows lie hidden, often destroying them before they can be examined. Scientists stress that these features are as important as fossils, preserving a record of behavior rather than just bones. To lose them would mean erasing vital evidence of how extinct animals once interacted with their environment. Walking through a tunnel carved by claws 10,000 years ago evokes a strange sensation, as if entering the memory of a creature that no longer exists. The curved ceilings, the claw marks frozen in clay, and the stillness of the underground passage remind visitors of a time when giants prowled the forest. The ground beneath the Amazon holds not only roots and stone, but also the enduring trace of a vanished world. More of these enormous passageways lie sealed in the Earth's darkness, waiting until the day they are opened to show the trails left by giants beneath the forest. The hidden cities revealed by LiDAR. An unbroken ocean of green defines the Amazon rainforest, stretching outward until it meets the sky at every edge. Yet beneath this canopy lies evidence of sprawling settlements that remained invisible for centuries, shielded by dense vegetation. Only with the help of advanced laser technology did their outlines finally emerge, showing patterns that spoke of entire cities hidden in the jungle floor. The breakthrough came when researchers turned to LiDAR, short for light detection and ranging. Mounted on low-flying aircraft, the system sends thousands of laser pulses downward, piercing through gaps in the leaves to map the contours of the ground below. In 2018, a survey led by archaeologist Jose Iriarte revealed something astonishing in the upper Amazon, near the borders of Bolivia and Brazil. Vast geometric designs, straight roads, and clusters of earthworks forming the skeletons of long-forgotten urban centers. What surprised scientists most was not just the size of these settlements, but their sophistication. The imagery revealed carefully planned layouts, with wide avenues connecting neighborhoods, ceremonial plazas, and defensive walls that enclosed parts of the cities. Unlike random villages scattered in the forest, these sites showed evidence of centralized planning, suggesting leadership, social organization, and shared belief systems that shaped their construction. Excavations on the ground confirmed what the lasers had hinted at. Archaeologists uncovered raised causeways stretching for kilometers, linking separate communities like arteries in a living body. Artificial terraces appeared to have supported crops, and water management systems controlled seasonal flooding. The discoveries showed that these were not isolated farmers surviving in small clearings, but societies capable of reshaping the land to sustain large populations. Estimates suggest that tens of thousands of people could have lived in these urban networks at their peak. This challenged the long-standing image of the Amazon as an untouched wilderness, home only to scattered groups of hunter-gatherers. Instead, the forest had once been a landscape transformed by human hands, a mosaic of engineered environments that balanced cultivation with the natural ecosystem. The use of LiDAR also revealed patterns invisible to the naked eye, straight lines cut through ridges and valleys, revealing ancient roads that would have guided processions or linked political centers. Circular and rectangular compounds emerged as faint outlines on the ground, their scale too large to notice from within the forest itself. Together, they painted the picture of a society that left behind monuments in the earth rather than stone. One striking revelation came from the Llanos de Mojos region in Bolivia, where dozens of massive platforms were discovered beneath the forest. Some were shaped like pyramids, rising above the plain, while others formed long rectangular bases large enough to hold entire gatherings. These structures stood as testaments to the labor of thousands of workers, constructed over generations and maintained through collective effort. The implications of these findings go beyond archaeology. They suggest that the Amazon, far from being a pristine wilderness, was once a managed landscape, shaped by human ingenuity. Soil studies in areas near the uncovered cities revealed patches of dark, fertile earth known as terra preta, created by mixing charcoal, compost, and other organic materials. This human-made soil remains fertile for centuries, showing how ancient Amazonians improved their environment to support agriculture on a massive scale. Yet despite the grandeur revealed by the scans, questions remain. Why did these urban networks collapse? Climate changes, disease, or the arrival of Europeans in the 16th century may have disrupted their way of life. Without written records, the voices of these cities are silent, leaving behind only earthworks and the faint marks of roads now swallowed by trees. The technology that exposed these forgotten cities also raises the possibility that many more lie undiscovered. LiDAR surveys have only covered a fraction of the Amazon basin, leaving millions of square kilometers still unexplored. Each new flight over the canopy has the potential to reveal another settlement, another clue to a world erased by time and vegetation. Standing inside a rainforest clearing today, it is difficult to imagine that a bustling city once thrived in the same space, its plazas filled with voices and footsteps. Yet the laser images prove it. Beneath the roots and vines, whole civilizations are buried, waiting to be traced again by human eyes. Entire maps of forgotten cities rest hidden within untouched forest, their walls and streets muted by the heavy cover of centuries of green.